It's time for a 5-year recap of all 10 of my shows, where I've been, what I was feeling, how I wasn't feeling, what I was feeling for, and what I could have done without. Here it is, the last 5 years of Random Maxwell. For the first time that I can ever remember, and I think for the first time ever due to the global pandemic and just the state of affairs in the world in general, there will not be a physical New York Fashion Week. It's going all digital. I've spoken many times about how the process of creating the show and being at the show and being together with everyone and the music and the food and the drinks has fueled me really more sometimes than making the clothes, and I really consider myself a showman at heart. So because it's our 5-year anniversary, it's a really, really, really good moment for me to look back at all that we've accomplished, the beginnings, the middle, and where we are now. And I feel more optimistic than ever, so I'm excited to take you through things that you might not have known, stories I might not have shared, the behind the scenes really of what it takes to go into making a show, and the journey that I've been on thus far. So here it is, all 10 of my fashion shows over the last 5 years. Show number 1, September 2015. It was at Mr. Chow, Uptown in New York City. This was my very first show. I've spoken about this before, but I mentioned to someone that I was making a collection. It was printed, and so it was. I had to go forward and get a very small team. I worked out of the tiniest office. It was really so exciting that very first time. I had no expectations. I think the fashion people knew me as a stylist, but there were, I think the half people were like, what is this? And then the other half were like, really, what is this? And so in a way, I had never been through it before, so it was really so exciting. I remember Gaga in the car running around to every store 4 hours before the show because I didn't count right how many shoes I needed, so we had to get more. Inez and Benood were on the floor for days with my family looking through castings. It was the very first time I met Riley Montana, and we clicked immediately, and she's been such an important friend and part of our brand for so many years. It was the first time that I had really done something big on my own, and I remember standing outside with Marla Weinhoff, who does the set design and has for every show I've done. She came in, she made a little wall for me that lit up with my name in the back and is still in my office now, and I remember her saying, this could change your life. Looking back on it now, I see the cast of the show, and I remember meeting them for the first time. It was my first season. A lot of them, it was their first season. It was Taylor Hill, Romay, Riley Montana. It was so many incredible women whose careers sort of that season started to take off, and we've done so many things together. Events in every show and have been in my campaigns, and it was just so incredible. I look back at that time and it felt like we were freshmen in high school, Show number 2, Monkey Bar, Uptown, NYC, February 2016. This was the most hectic show of my life, truly. I was balancing 2 jobs. I hadn't really previously thought how I would continue styling, and if the collection got off the ground, we were very fortunate the first season. Many stores bought the collection. I had to hire production. I was doing so many things. That show, the night before the show, I've talked about this before, I was at the Grammys in LA. A snowstorm happened and I almost didn't make it. I was on the very last flight. So that is really where my life was at that time. I was traveling one day, doing styling one day, doing the collection the next. I think I was on 5 airplanes that week. I was so obsessed with doing things in tiny restaurants, I think because I was mentally very scared of going out there. Very small. And I had just gotten into New York, no sleep. All the press was there. All the women were there. All the attendees were there. And I went into a booth in the back, poured a glass of champagne, and just started hysterically crying. And I think it hit me that this was really happening. You can look out the window and you see people coming in, and I was tired, and I was like, whoa, the newness of this very quickly has worn off, and this is gonna be my life. And I think for that show, I was realizing all of that for the very first time. Third show, Russian Tea Room, September 2016. It was my first big show. The room was huge. I think it was like over 300 people, which I had always wanted to keep it under 100. It was a huge room, big set and lighting and chairs. Like it was really my first big show. We had a huge backstage. It just felt like an exciting time. I had just won a CFDA award, my very first, and I felt like people were really watching. That was the first time that I felt it was a big moment, lots of pressure, terrified, but I felt the pressure in my heart really for the first time. I felt that anticipation, and my biggest memory from that show was I put my headphones in and I tracked the music to the track of the show. I went into a kitchen and closed the door and never watched the show. I don't remember that show backstage. I felt like it had all become real to me over the course of the last year, and I realized like I did have a lot to lose, and I was really scared of losing it. Oh God. I have literally never talked about this one. We have alluded to this show many times in many different interviews in print and in video. I've talked about a darker time in my life. I've never actually, this is breaking news, I've never connected it to that show. And I've always been hesitant to do it because, you know, it is a moment in my life, and I think any moment, even if they're bad moments, you have to look at them as building blocks for where you are now. And it's also like the clothes are like my children, so I don't want to, you know, say something bad about one or the other. But show number 4, World Trade Center, February 2017, I would say that of my adult life, this was probably one of my darker moments. I think what happened in the time between me winning the CFDA award, there was a lot of press. The business had grown like over 40% overnight. There was a lot of pressure, and it was like I was still balancing doing another job, and also the pressures of being like the next, what, you know, the industry like decides what you're going to be, and they want you to be this thing. And I felt really grateful to be in that, but I also in that moment was realizing like this was not a schedule and a pace and a world in which I could really healthily function in. I think I was younger and I was coping in really unhealthy, negative ways. We've all seen that movie a million times. And I was disappointed in myself for doing so, but I was so exhausted and I was so riddled with anxiety that it was very hard for me to cope. I think I had a ton of imposter syndrome. I had, you know, much more money on the books. I had much more responsibility. These shows are sort of massive costs. I had a lot of, I felt a weight that I didn't feel before. And so when I look at that show, the show was dark. The makeup was dark, the eyes were heavy, the clothes were dark, everything felt dark. And I don't know why, looking back now, that was my choice, was to act out and to push it all away when I had such an opportunity that so few people ever get. I've always been angry with myself about that, but it was such a learning lesson because I failed so loudly. And I felt like there was this pressure on me for so long to be something for the last 2 years, like he's gonna be the next this, he's the next that, and I felt like I couldn't handle that pressure. So in every possible way through that show, I tried to be like, let me just ruin it. Turns out, that was the best-selling show I've ever had. It sold immediately overnight. Up until that point, it was a best-selling show. It sold like triple what any show had ever sold, and people didn't know that, but I always knew it in my heart. I remember I left the next day, and I went away, and I cried, I think, for 7 days straight. And I got in a very focused place after that. This felt like the start of a new time, a new life for me. The first 5 shows, I was really getting adjusted, and I was going through a lot emotionally, mentally, and just growing up, you know? And so this show felt for me, I felt like I had lost everything, and I was like, you know what? There's nothing to lose but to come back in color, in fun, and in joy. I think because the reviews from that show were bad, I felt people had started to give up on me, that I had nothing to lose. So I was like, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna have fun. Everything was bigger, full of color, denim, Americana, massive like earrings. And this was the show really that the women who'd been with me from the beginning, this was the supermodel moment. They were bona fide supermodels, and for some reason, so many women that I admired for so long, Jordan Dunn and Carly Kloss, like Gigi, Bella, everyone was like showed up. And it felt so redemptive for me in a way that, like, not in terms of fashion, but like for my own self, that you can come back from something that's dark, that's really dark. Not just dark on a level of like bad reviews or people don't like it, but like dark in your soul. And it felt like a flower blooming moment. I was back in a small restaurant. I wasn't doing these big, massive shows. I felt like I came back to myself. And I don't love fall shows. I'm on the record saying it. Fall is not my favorite season. You do not have enough time between September and February to fully get out a thought. It's always a little bit darker. And it's not my favorite personally. But I always look at this as the breakthrough fall moment for me, where I was like, I liked that. I enjoyed it. So for me personally, like, I then approached every fall show after that with like joy and excitement, where it was like a little bit of drudgery before. This was my first like big boy show, I would say. I had a new production team, I had a new agency, I had new PR, I had like, it was kind of like, I had people that I had dreamed of working with. I was at KCD and Dizon and William Morris and IMG, and it was like, things are changing for me. Like, I'm doing things my own way. That's what it felt like. It was, James Taylor played at the end of that show with smoke coming out, and all the women walked together, and my team came out, who have been with me through really bad and really great, like a lot of things. And it just felt like we're gonna be okay. I have a photo of me jumping backstage it was the first time I watched the show. I primped, pulled every single one of those women as they went out onto the runway, and instead of being in the corner crying, panicking that my career is going to be over, I was like, this is me. It was so much fun. The energy was so fantastic. I got everyone ready. I told every woman to have fun on the runway. It was so fun. You could see New York City in the background. It just felt like a quintessential American moment for me, you know? Show 7, Classic Car Club, September 2018, the show that changed my life, for real, for real. I had the idea when I was at my sister's wedding that everybody was gonna sit in pickup trucks and on ice chests. We were gonna drink beer, eat hamburgers. It was gonna be a tailgate party. I was gonna be Brandon Maxwell through and through. I was gonna show my life in Texas. I was gonna show who I am. I was not gonna take it too seriously, and I was just gonna have fun. This was the moment I really became an adult, and if Mr. Chow show number 1 changed my life in a way, this was the show that truly changed my life. It was my grandmother walking down the end of the runway with me. I was in such a clear space in that show. I remember I worked harder than ever for that show. I was so clear. I would not even come home at night and have a glass of wine. I was like, I'm focused for months. I'm gonna do this. After that show, I signed endorsement deals, did national television commercials. I signed on to be on a national television show. I was the first time I was doing bags and accessories, the music, it was all over the top. It just felt like this big Texas American moment. And it's the show that I always, always, always remember feeling like the imposter syndrome in myself started to dissipate. Like, I was like, you know what? Every single person on this team has worked hard and has sacrificed. We deserve to be here. Again, I've never spoken about this, but I have talked a little. Like, I'm pretty, and have always been since I was a child, very enamored with first ladies. I have read every book and every film. DC is my favorite city. I'm obsessed with history and politics, and this was that moment for me. Leading into show 8, there was so much optimism, and then literally overnight, things went dark. My mom got cancer. I was filming a TV show for my first time. My schedule was overwhelming. I'm flying back and forth. I'm a little bit going back to what was happening before, but I'm more adult this time. So while the show was very strict, when you look at it, it's very reminiscent of the World Trade Center show. It's very strict. The clothes are very strict, clean, black and white. There was still a beauty to it. And I felt like that was the evolution for me. That just when things are strict and controlled, they don't have to be dark and grim. So, show number 9, my first show in Brooklyn. It was called Brandon's. We built it in a space with grass and bleachers and neon lights and smoke and confetti, and it just, the big Americana moment for me. This was the show that I was like, I'm going to be the Brandon Maxwell that I was growing up. It's the denim, it's the color, it's the more is more. The first time I worked with Carlene Surf, legendary icon Carlene Surf. She styled the show so fun. It was opened by Irina Shayk. It was my friend. We need to put a clip of my friend Jamie, who was just going wild in the audience. It just felt like so much fun, that show. I don't really have, like, when I look back at that show, it wasn't like an overly emotional or dark time. It just felt like I was pretty clear on what I wanted to say and what I wanted to do, which I always am in September. February is where it just can go awry. Show 10, American Museum of Natural History, New York City, February 2020. The last show that I did for the foreseeable future. For some reason, I felt in my heart, and I've said this to everybody, and I think people knew it, I felt it was going to be my last show for a while. Just had an eerie feeling. One, we knew a little bit that COVID-19 was happening and was sort of making its way here. I think people also don't understand just the amount of stress, money, time that goes into these shows. It was the sister to September. It was the more sort of evening Americana sportswear. The big bear in the background. But was I sick that show? Was I sick in the bathroom that entire time from the show? Absolutely, yes ma'am, I was. For some reason, for like a couple days leading up to that show, there were a few articles saying like, let's hope Brandon Maxwell can do it. And I'm like, who's asking about me? Like, but for some reason, when people are buzzing about before the show, it's like the pressure's on you. You gotta do it. You gotta deliver for New York Fashion Week. I'm like, me? Why? Why me? That is so dumb. I don't know why I do that to myself. It's like, no one cares. They're there to get their burger, see if they like a dress. Let's move on. We're all waiting for Marc Jacobs in the end, for the end of the week, me included. Like, we don't need me, really. But anyways, that's where I was. I remember, like, I let that pressure get to me, thinking, like, I have to do something great. But I just, like, have to be myself and have fun. And so, it felt like a good swan song for a second. Not a permanent swan song. A temporary swan song. But 3 weeks after that, we went home. And we've pretty much been here. When people ask me, like, what is the show about? After the show, what's your inspiration? The least exciting question in fashion, which I never have an answer to. People are like, you know, did you go somewhere? Did you read something? Did you watch something? I'm like, no, I was just like up or down this season. I was a little emotional. So the women, who's the woman when they ask you? The woman is me. It's how I'm feeling. Like, I could literally look at every single show and really sit down with you and go into more depth than I could on YouTube of exactly how the woman that walked that runway is representative of where I am in my life. When you look at that World Trade Center show, dark, tense. Look at the Texas show at the Classic Car Club. I had just gotten engaged. My sister was getting married. I spent time in Texas. It was colorful, exciting. It's literally that literal. But they always want to like, well, that's it. the 10 shows that I've done in my 5 years. Thank you all, first of all, so much for following along and helping us get to 5 years. It's a huge milestone for me personally, and I just want to thank you so much. Although we're not having Fashion Week physically, I believe that we will again. I'm so looking forward to what everybody is going to do, digitally or not. I know that this has been a confusing time for so many people, certainly young people coming out of school and all designers, but it's in these moments that I think something fantastic will come out, and I cannot wait to see what all of my friends do, what every designer does. I am so proud to be a designer working in New York City. I'm so proud of our community. I'm so proud of the creativity, the resilience, the heart, and the soul. I know that we will be back again. I know that we will show again. I know that we will be better than ever. We will have learned things. We will have grown, and I cannot wait to see what that blooms into. And for now, everybody just take this time to look back at things that you have loved, to remember why you loved it, to pause, and to get ready to go forward again.